Coming up next is a panel discussion on franchising outlook and opportunities in Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC, moderated by Mr. Sary Hamway, founder and CEO, the franchise trainer. Over to you, Sary.
Good day, everyone. We are privileged to be here today, and we must thank Franchising and Licensing Asia and Constellar for organizing such a wonderful event. And I hope my panelists for the day and myself will be able to relay our knowledge and experience in franchising regarding our topic today. We also must send a big thank you, a message of love and respect to our audience in Southeast Asia. Our subject today is about franchising sector in the GCC. GCC is short for the Gulf Council countries, which is in the Arabic Peninsula. And this market has been very friendly regarding welcoming franchisors from all over the world, and it remains buoyant and represents a significant opportunity for those who want to expand their business into this region. Today, with our panelists, we're going to have different views from different angles. The first being the government support to the franchise industry in general, franchisors and franchisees, master franchisees, and support service provider, represented by Mr. Ahmed Mahmoud, who is representing the UAE Franchise Association. And the second angle would be from a master franchisee and a retail operator in both fashion and food and beverage. So we will get to know his point of view with relation to operating international brands in the region. The third angle would be from my dear friend Marcel Portmann, who's representing a franchisor today, and with his experience in expanding Duck Donuts, which is a donut brand from the US, expanded in many countries in the region. He will share with us his experience with entering these countries and how to establish and operate an international business in the region. So what do we expect during this discussion? The point number one would be why Southeast Asian brands should look at development opportunities in the GCC region. What would be the challenges and opportunities for developing a franchise business in this region? And then, of course, we will share a competitive landscape for those who want to expand in the region based on the food and beverage and retail business. Our first panelist for the day is Mr. Ahmed Mahmoud. And Mr. Ahmed Mahmoud is an advisor for the Emirates Association for Franchising. And he is an accomplished franchise expert with a solid track record of completing franchise development projects. He's distinguished in developing franchise systems and operational manual for franchisees, and he is currently working with the UAE Franchise Association in developing local indigenous Emirati brands. Our second speaker is Mr. Mohammad Al-Madani, and he's the chairman and CEO of Al-Madani Group. And coming from a petroleum engineering background, because he graduated in the University of Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the US, but he came back to Dubai and worked in the oil field in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and even in Houston, Texas. But his passion for retail started in 1991 because he wanted to grow his family business, which is the National Tailors, and taking it to everywhere in each mall within the UAE. And in 1996, he obtained the franchise rights for a few brands. Just to mention a few: Levi's, Duckers, Hang from USA, of course, Gaz from Italy, Chivignon and Naf Naf from France. And in food, Charles Grilled Subs, Witterdorf Chelsea Tea and Coffee House from the UK, Charles Philly Steak, and Bagel Bar Coffee from Ireland. He also operates local brands such as Kandura, which is a luxurious thobe. Thobe is the national dress in the UAE. And also a chain of Emirati cuisine restaurants called Al Barsa Restaurants and Cafe. And our third panelist is Mr. Marcel Portmann, and he's the Global Development and Operation Manager for Duck Donuts. Marcel, the Certified Franchise Executive from the IFA, and he was also Vice President of the International Development for the IFA, 1998 to 2007, and also served as the Secretary General of the World Franchise Council. And currently, he manages the global development and operation for Duck Donuts, which is a US-based franchise companies. And we will learn and understand from different point of views how Southeast Asian brands can expand into the Middle East. So I welcome my speakers, and I would just want to throw in one question to Mr. Madani, being an operator, somebody with hands-on experience in obtaining and operating successful brands in the region. Mr. Madani, why do you think some international brands did not enter the GCC market yet?
Welcome everybody to this lovely discussion. It's, the passion with all the retail and fashion and F&Bs in my blood, as I said. What I would think that why people won't come, or some of the brands won't come, is the lack of information I think that they might have about the region. They think it's still, this is a desert, and people are not that modernized, it's not a Western culture. So I think there is this lack of information about the region. But now, of course, with the world being flat now, everything can be shared with social, whether in the internet region. So I think this will be much more clear that it's not anymore restricted area. They might think that, okay, they need to have a partner with the local and they cannot form their own entity. So this was maybe one of the reasons that they were, discouraged to come to the region. But as you know, you have seen how many brands now they are here, and especially in Dubai. Most of the franchising actually started in Dubai. I remember KFC from the 70s here, and so that franchising model has started long time in Dubai. Dubai is, you can see, the model for the whole area, for the whole GCC. They started in Dubai, and now they're expanding in everywhere. So those restrictions that they were thinking, I think now it is much more the very diversified culture. Dubai, look, we have more than 200 nationalities with tolerance, harmony among all the different cultures. So that misconcept that, okay, there might be some restrictions for the, it's much more open. They were maybe fearing that, okay, there is no protection for their brands, intellectual property, private equity, all these things. I mean, they were all afraid, but I think now the world is open and the world is flat, and GCC welcoming all different culture and different brands. So the world is open now.
You reminded me of your presentation in one of the franchise conferences that was held in Dubai a few years back regarding the world is flat, and it was an amazing. I forgot to tell you, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Madani is a phenomenal speaker. On a stage, nobody's like him. So do you wanna expand on the theory of how the world is flat with relation to franchising?
I said, if somebody tells you now the world is flat, they will they'll put them in jail, maybe like the old days. But the world is flat now because I mean, you can connect anywhere now. We are here, people from UK, I think, and from Singapore, from East, from West. So you just plug in your computer, your laptop, your iPhone. Now the world is flat. You can talk to anybody. You can, you don't need those barriers. There's not those red tapes. If you want to get any, quotation, if you want to get any bidding, it's all done on this flat world. It's done. It's done with just plug in your computer, your laptop, your iPhone. You're connected to the whole world. So that's the concept. I think Friedman actually was this book is about world is flat. That's where he inspired me, and I really like that concept. World is flat.
And your presentation really inspired a lot of people, including myself. And thank you very much for this expansion on the idea of the world. I just love the idea. And maybe Marcel, do you agree that the world is flat nowadays?
It's a pleasure to be here. Appreciate the invitation once again. Definitely, I think with today's technology and today's access to transport, as Mr. Mohammad was saying, it's much easier to connect with folks, to see new businesses, look at new concepts, and hopefully bring them back to your market. So I definitely agree. We are in a new age of technology that has allowed us to go to beyond borders we had before, and the GCC is an exciting area of the world, which I have been very privileged to travel to most countries in the area. So looking forward to the discussion.
Very much. So what would you consider the cultural factors, Marcel, that international franchisors, especially from Southeast Asia, would need to take into consideration before coming to this region?
Again, it's a very varied region. I would say, aside from the operational requirements in some markets in the region, the GCC, for religious praying purposes and other operational requirements, when you're sourcing or looking for an investor or franchisee, I would say some of the cultural factors is the intro and negotiation part can be long. And initially, you will probably speak to someone in middle management that has been given the task to investigate a little bit about your brand. At least that's been my experience. But once they are convinced, you'll certainly have to go through certain steps and meet certain people on the way to making a deal happen. And it is a very diverse region, despite having the same language. You do have some differences in the way business is done between, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and other markets in the GCC. So I would say the cultural factors for this particular session would be to be mindful of the way business is done. It's very much into networking. The investors and the current folks running businesses are very much into learning a bit more about you as a business, not just as a business, but what makes you run good, and maybe they'll invite you to dinners with their family. And sometimes, I've lived in the US many years, and that sometimes is not something common in the US, and that is very common in GCC. which happens to be close to me as well, because I'm from Latin America also. So we have that certain similarity.
Okay. And Mr. Ahmed Mahmoud, being a consultant, a franchise consultant yourself, what would be the obstacles in your point of view that maybe may face international franchisors coming or considering to expand into the GCC area?
First of all, hello everybody. I think for international franchisors or franchisees to come to the GCC area, it will be about understanding the legislative nature of UAE, and also understanding the part of the side of operations and the culture of the multi-language and the multi-culture that is here. So that would be the only thing. But generally, it's an international location. So everybody here is they base their understanding as an international. It's an international city. It's a worldwide hub. It's the third hub in the trade hub in the world. So I don't think there's major conflicts, but it's very it can be, it depends on how many people can come here, and once they come visit, they all understand how it is.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, understand the culture.
I mean, we all know that the UAE Franchise Association is playing a major role in supporting the franchise industry in general. And how do you describe, your services as an association to maybe incoming franchisors?
So we can say that we work on nurturing. So we provide awareness campaigns for franchisees, basically everybody in the franchising sector. Our focus is on seminars, conferences, exhibitions. So far, we conducted 8 exhibitions, international exhibitions in Abu Dhabi, including conferences. Also by supporting the local business to understand the franchising sector and take it as a model for development. We also work on arbitration between franchisees, and our main focus actually is on their diversifying the activities of franchise. So we would like to see manufacturing franchise, health sector franchise, education, childcare franchise, social franchise to be expanded in the UAE. So that's part of the roles that we play. Other roles involve other governments bodies, which include funds and includes SME development entities to help the local brands expand internationally. So we work on both sides. So we work on working with local brands and at the same time international brands by providing exhibitions so they can provide or present their services or their model in UAE.
Do you encourage brands from Southeast Asia to contact you as the UAE Franchise Association for advice before entering the market?
Definitely. We can provide them with an advice about how to how to access actual local business owners, entities in general. Also, we can provide them with an overview of how to understand the legislative nature here, in the UAE and the culture. So we work as an entity that supports all. So we are ready for answers. We are ready for. We have our answers and we're ready.
Do you have something like a pre-entry business plan that you may share with international franchisors?
Yes. So as I said, it's mostly concentrates on how to enter the country, how to talk to the franchisee, what kind of logistics you expect.
Yeah.
In terms of VAT and in terms of customs and stuff like this. So it's kind of an onboarding framework that we can work with them. Yeah.
Right. How about the registration of and authentication of the franchise agreement? Would you describe the process? Maybe Mr. Mohammad, being you acquired the franchise rights for many brands. Would you describe the process to protect both the franchisor and the franchisee rights?
Yes, although I started much earlier before any association or any franchising model has been developed in the UAE and in the region. And back in 2005, when I acquired the franchising rights for Charlie's, that was my first entry into FMB. As Sary mentioned, I started in '96 with the major retail jeans, Levi's, Dockers, Hankton. So it's mostly in the casual fashion I was started. So and that, okay, you could register, we registered. Of course, Levi's was very much against registering the Ministry of Economy as an agent law. So we only had like a reseller distribution agreement between the two companies. On FMB, okay, we did, of course, our, master franchise. Earlier, it was not master franchising. It was just a development franchising. For the first 5 years, it was our own stores. We opened about 10 stores, and that really admired the Charlie's people in the States. So then they told me about, I didn't know about master franchising. I was just asking them, can I do sub-franchising? They said, oh, you want a master franchising agreement? Oh, what is the master? So I learned. That's a big learning for me that, in 2011, we signed the master franchising. So those agreements, of course, mainly, I knew a lot about. I was attending IFA. I'm also certified, in the IFA courses. So I know the, laws and all the agreements. So we have, all the disclosures about, the brand. So we knew all about franchising. So we only, of course, did like in the Ministry of Economy just to protect our rights and all that. So we registered as like according to the agency law. But as you know, still in UAE, we don't have maybe, Ahmed Mahmoud can, they work in future. And I'm also a member of the advisory committee of the UAE franchising. So we are working, but of course, there's a lot of challenges. As you know, UAE, 7 Emirates, every Emirate has their own jurisdiction. So to make a federal law, it requires a lot of work. So there is no franchise law at the moment, but mainly, with the association, they're helping a lot of franchisors or franchisee to, make the agreement right and do all properly according to every Emirates jurisdiction through Chamber of Commerce and Economic Department. So our brands actually all registered in Ministry of Economy. And so our agreement, like I said, legally is not registered here in UAE because franchise law, but we have all the from the Economic Department, the licensing, and also from Ministry of Economy. Except for Saudi, as you all know, that they just recently came up with a franchise law, which is a very, early in the States, but it's a big move. I mean, there's
a big movement. I was privileged to be part of the team who put some recommendation with relation to the legal review of the first draft of the franchise law in Saudi Arabia. And based of our work, it was a big team from different countries, including Saudi Arabia and myself. And they launched the law, which is, again, like you mentioned, it's a big movement. So yeah, we hope that the agency law does not cover, the all aspects of franchising, but and does not much protect, but the registration of the agreement at least is a minimum protection in the Ministry of Economy. Marcel, who would be your ideal franchisee? Would you take Mr. Madani as an ideal franchisee?
Definitely. I think, the Charlies with Duck would do very well. We can actually come up with a combo. But
all right, let's talk about that then.
That would be very good. Yeah, so in the case of Duck Donuts, of course, we are a retail food brand that has the need for high traffic locations and have good parking, because we do a lot of takeaway business as well. So, ideal prospect should have an understanding of the retail. It's a very, very competitive market in the GCC markets. Getting to a certain mall, you can have, and Mr. Mohammad can correct me, you can be waiting for years to get a spot in one of the large malls in Dubai. So having a good network throughout the countries of the region is very important, of course, for not just for us, probably for any brand that requires a retail spot. Has managed existing international brands is definitely a plus, such as Mr. Mohammad, and being able to relay the experience of having learned how do you manage a master franchise, an area developer, how do you deal with a headquarters that is hours away, different language. That is very, very useful. It can always be taught, it can always be brought in, but it's going to take a longer learning curve. And the other one, which is not easy to find in the region sometimes, is hands-on involvement. The region does have a tendency to have groups that like to collect brands. So it's very it's more than an issue. It's more of being able to identify what do you want in your partner. If you want hands-on involvement, day-to-day operations, then you need to be very careful who you select as a partner, because a lot of the groups that buy brands will be delegating them to some other entity or some other staff or employees. So that is in the case of Duck, our main focus is someone that has managed brands already internationally in the food business would be ideal, of course, and has existing shops and contacts at the real estate level, because we do need to have, our shops are not very big. We're in the donut business, so we've managed to create a footprint of about 40 square meters, 400 square feet. So we have more access than other brands in the food business. But it's very similar to what you see in Southeast Asia. As far as concepts, we were able to put in very small locations, and that is a success. It will drive success if you're able to have a very concise and very small format.
Marcel, last year was different. The shopping malls were looking and they were calling us, do you have any more brands or any? Because it was because of the lockdown and the pandemic, for the first time the shopping malls were different. Even the relationship with us, being with them for more than 20 years, the power balance changed.
Right. Having mentioned that point, Mr. Madani, I would love to hear from you. Over the years, what went wrong? Sometimes the relationship between franchisor and franchisees don't go like straightforward, happy and smiling parties. sometimes things go sour or they go
I'll
south.
give, yes, I'll give an example of Whittard of Chelsea, which you mentioned. I mean, we had a model that, okay, it's a wet concept. Whittard didn't have a wet concept in London. It was a dry, which is the only retail. And so we said that model doesn't work for, we are not in FMCG where we have to go to Carrefour and go to, Lulu and all this. We are not in that business. We are into retail, into, franchising. So we like to have a wet concept. We actually developed that wet concept for Whittard, but then the management changed. 5 years later, we did for 5 years, we opened only about seven stores. They came, they say, no, we don't want that model. That they made a mistake. Or we want to go back to retail. So we only require 20 or 30 square meters for just to sell, and maybe you can taste, the tea or coffee.
Well, how was the WIT model? I mean, I love this expression of the Witter Tea Lounge. How was it? Was it successful? Was it profitable in the UAE?
It was, except for some locations that, we did a sub-franchise. So we have the sub-franchise to some in Abu Dhabi and all that. So those locations didn't work out, but it was a successful one until they changed. And then, if you remember, we changed those stores from Whittard to Bagel Bar. And,
you did.
So we made use of those locations. We had the prime location in Festival City, and so and even Battuta Mall. So we converted to Bagel Bar. So that's where another, I think, from master franchisee, maybe I can share you the experience that, okay, our sub-franchisee will not pay the royalty, and then that will, jeopardize our relation with the franchisor, and
with the 3 level of financial relationship.
And that's actually, I mean, we are currently having that experience, with especially during this COVID and pandemic, although they were very generous enough to give about even 50% discount on the royalty for the 2020, but still some of our franchisees are not able to pay. So that makes your relationship with your franchisor a little bit challenging. And but so far we are managing it. But that's the challenges that we have faced if you are a master franchisee and you have sub-franchise, and the difficulties of collecting, because again the jurisdiction, the banking, we are. And the states are different. The tail goes straight from the tail royalty goes to the bank. Here we don't have that, so we have to wait for the franchisees to pay on monthly basis, not even on weekly basis. And so that is the main challenges that we hope the banking system also can adopt to this model where you can, to the franchising models. And the franchising is a big trillion business in America, and of course, the difference there, you have geographically is very vast, and you have all different states, you have cities, so you have tons of franchising businesses and trillions. I don't know if it was 30 trillion. If I can't remember the number, it's a big business in USA.
Perfect. And Marcel, how do you comment on that? What would be the do's and don'ts, if you may, for international franchisors coming to the region?
Well, I would say it applies to probably any region, but in the GCC area, do your homework, do your research, understand that it is a very concise region. If you look at the territory area, aside from Saudi Arabia, which has the largest territory, these are smaller markets that have a lot of potential. A city like Dubai, city and other cities, Manama in Bahrain. I would say that the success is making research, going to the region. I've talked to so many brands in years past that they've talked to prospects from countries in the GCC, but they've never traveled to the GCC. They've never landed into an airport that have to deal with going through customs and all that. There are trade shows, there are events such as this as well. I'm sure Mr. Ahmed can give us some examples of events that can teach you to learn the region, understand your customer, which in this case is your investor in the GCC market. I think one of the biggest factors for duck that was not something we thought was going to be as complicated as it was, is the supply chain. Being able to bring in your mix, your shortening, and being able to keep the supply chain going. The expansion to the Middle East started before COVID, so we were caught in the middle of COVID with the opening of stores in the region, and that had a big impact on supply chain. I had a big impact on the training team, being able to land into the market to train the staff. We weren't able to send people because people were not able to travel. So obviously that's behind us, but I do think it's given us some very good lessons on how to deal with the regions such as GCC, and like Mr. Mohammad said, a lot of lessons have been come from it, and I think the biggest one for duck was understand the territory, understand the consumer, and make sure you have your supply chain figured out.
I agree. I mean, I see supply chain in relation to product-oriented franchises. When if it's a service franchise, it's a different story. But for product-oriented franchises, whether it's food and beverage or retail, supply chain is the backbone of the business. Do you agree, Mr. Ahmed? Being a consultant this time.
Yes, surely. So it differs from also the structure in UAE differs from the structure in Saudi Arabia, for example.
Yeah.
So we see even franchisors that have UAE as their main base. When they are trying to move to Saudi Arabia, they will find it's not the same in terms of customs, in terms of procedures.
True.
It might be easier in Dubai, or it might be more technological based. So it's in Dubai, but when you move to other GCC countries, there is a bit of hardship in the logistics.
Okay. It is different. It's different. So your advice would be don't deal with all countries in the GCC area as the same. If you're going to UAE, is slightly different from going to Saudi Arabia or Oman or Bahrain, Qatar or Kuwait. Is that correct? This is what you want to say?
Yeah. This is exactly what it is. In general.
Excellent. I mean, we only have a few minutes left before we have to say goodbye. Do you want to share some statistics from the franchise industry in the region or in the UAE?
Surely. So to look at the franchise sector in the Middle East, it kind of represents like 30% of the consumer sector, over 30%. So that's kind of a $30 billion which is a very big and very encouraging. There's a very high growth rate at 25% to 27% growth rate for the franchise sector. And for Saudi Arabia, let's start with Saudi Arabia because it's the biggest country. It has a kind of a franchise market value of $1.3 billion in annual fees and royalties. With the expected growth rate of 12 to 15%. For only fees and royalties. For the UAE,
that's a lot of money. I mean, just imagine how much the country is making from the withholding tax.
No, I wanted to say that 15% for Saudi Arabia. I know that's another challenge that we have with our franchisee there, that every time they have to deduct that 15%.
That's right.
It becomes a nightmare for us each year that how to count, give credits and that. We are free, so only VAT.
I think we have a few minutes left. So I mean, one final comment from each one of you, my beautiful panelists today. Thank you very much. But I'd love to hear from you one final comment, starting with Mr. Mohammad Madani.
I mean, as I said, GCC and especially UAE being in Dubai Dubai is a hub for the whole business. I think for any franchisors, we encourage them to start in Dubai and then probably expand into, so in Saudi Arabia definitely is a big market, and now with the franchising law and that's a big potential there. And of course, Qatar and Bahrain and Kuwait.
Dubai works as the showcase for the entire region.
Of course, I mean,
if your brand
that's
is
our experience.
present,
I mean, when we started with Charlie's, people came from Saudi, from Qatar, from Bahrain, even from Pakistan, from India, from all over the world.
Imagine you have a prime location in Dubai Mall. I mean, it's a tourist place. Everybody goes and sees that.
We had a location at Dubai Airport also.
Yeah,
before they demolished that Terminal 1.
Yeah, Mr. Ahmed, I have an idea, and maybe we can agree to. We need to do some sort of market research to publish data on the franchise industry in the UAE.
Yeah, surely.
With the support from Mr. Mohammad Madani as a board member, would love to do, this, publish maybe a franchise directory that includes all master franchisees and franchisors in the region, and some sort of publication from the franchise association. So maybe this I think would be helpful, to the franchise industry in general.
Generally, the homegrown brands also. We don't know. I myself, I don't know how many local brands exist, and they are some of them very successful,
and some of them are already franchising.
They've done to States, even to UK. They opened.
Marcel, you're muted, and one final comment from you, sir.
Just, it's a great region. I've traveled many times, and one last factor that concerns of Southeast Asia is a lot of the workforce in the GCC comes from Southeast Asia. So the nostalgia factor for many concepts from Southeast Asia would be very strong. It is very strong in the region. So opening a concept that someone who has moved from Southeast Asia to work or to be in the GCC is very strong. So the nostalgia factor is a very big factor to consider for Southeast Asia brands to come to GCC. And thank you again.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. Life is about continuous learning. Today, I learned so much from my friends and colleagues, and thank you very much for sharing your knowledge very generously. I hope that our discussion today would benefit some of the franchisors in Southeast Asia who are desirous to come to our region. Welcome. Please come. Please talk to us. Please communicate with us regarding your concerns or maybe your worries before coming to the region. We're here to help you, and we want to see you soon in every sector, whether it's service, retail, or education, or health and beauty. We welcome the Southeast Asian brands, and thank you very much. And see you next time.
Welcome.
Big heart from all of us.
Yes.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Sary, and all our panelists.